Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Social Flight Live. I'm Jeff Simon. We have such a wonderful show for you this evening. Mark Scheuer is here from PS Engineering, and we're going to talk all about the history of that company, Mark's background, and about aviation audio and all the things that benefit us in general aviation. Before we get started, I just want to say a couple things. First of all, we just concluded one of our prize challenges in the Fly to Win challenge, and Andrew O'Brien has won a custom set of Flying Eyes eyewear. He's choosing that, having them all customize it for him. So very, very excited about that. And we have now kicked off our next prize period, which is truly exciting because we are giving away an Aspen E5 electronic flight instrument. We're talking about a $6,000 value, and all you need to do in order to be entered to win into this is simply get the free SocialFlight mobile app, get an account, get out there, and fly. All you need to do is check in at any airport at least once during the prize period, and you will be entered in to win that Aspen E5 electronic flight instrument. And I'm just so excited to find the winner for this. And so all the information's on SocialFlight about it. Obviously, to qualify, you do need an aircraft that you can put it in, but it's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm really, really looking forward to that as well. So with that, I'd like to talk a little bit about my very good friend, Mark Scheuer. Mark founded PS Engineering in 1985 with the goal of revolutionizing aircraft audio systems, and he's accomplished that. He's made that goal several times over, in my opinion. Over the past 37 years, PS Engineering has grown to become the undisputed leader in the field of aircraft intercom and audio technology. And we all have Mark to thank for introducing technologies into general aviation aircraft that we all take for granted in so many other parts of our world. And this includes things like voice-activated transmission technology, not having to adjust the squelch on our intercoms, stereo sound in our general aviation planes, integrated audio alerting, dimensional sound, so many more things that we'll talk about this evening. And I can tell you that during my years of developing avionics systems with many large companies out there, every time that we needed an audio solution, I just picked up the phone and I called Mark. And so with that, I would like to bring Mark on the line to join us, and please help me to welcome to Social Flight Live, Mark Scheuer. How are you doing, Mark?
Doing great, and thank you for that amazing, humbling introduction. And I am honored to be here. You've had so many wonderful talent and aviators that, in fact, I think you've asked me twice before, and I said no because I just didn't think I would match up with your other participants. But I want to turn the tables on you, if you don't mind. So back in 2012, I signed up for SocialFlight, and I've been using it for that many years. Can you show our participants what it looks like?
you want to actually, you're going to turn the tables on me again. This sounds eerily familiar to last week on me, but yeah, I mean, last week we had a problem. Sure, I'll share. Let me open it right here because I do get this question, and that's very, very gracious of you to talk about this for a minute. Let me show this. You're right. I don't think enough people have actually ever seen it, and so I'm gonna just show people really quickly what this is. So for any of you who have come to our show but have not actually used SocialFlight, just go to socialflight.com or get the mobile app. This is it. And what you see here, every gold circle on this map is something happening in general aviation. And this isn't even on our online events. This is our in-person go fly and do something. And it's just fun. You can just zoom into any area that's here. I know you know it, obviously out there. You find something, you click on it. I mean, I just randomly clicked on this. Food truck, big baby bites and discounted 100. Now look at that. Who doesn't need discounted 100 low-leaded fuel right now and a food truck after you fuel up? Like, so in a nutshell, that's, I don't want to take up much time. That's SocialFlight. there's a little button on the map you can push, and it'll turn the whole thing into burgers. And you can find out where you can go and find your nearest airport, $100 hamburger. So cool stuff like that. And then there's a whole menu of other things in the top of this. We have rewards, which are like deals from partners. Aspen's running a trade-in promotion, a trade-up trade-in promotion. We have our Fly to Win challenge, where you can see now, again, this is our prize drawing. You can see the past winners and kind of who's won and all the different prizes that we've given away. And you can even look at the leaderboard and see where you stand. Although being at the top of the leaderboard doesn't really matter that much. They get an extra entry, but everybody's entered in to win. And then the last thing I'll show is our FAA system, which is so cool because these are all wings and AMT and IA renewal courses. And all you have to do is you watch these, you take a quiz, and you get to compete, and you get credit with the FAA's wings or AMT or IA. So I want to stop showing that. Thank you. That's very kind of you to take time to do that. But I want to talk PS engineering.
One more thing. So before this show, my EA Chapter 17, we're all made aware of this. And that just broadens the participation. So I challenge everyone who's watching us tonight to ask one or two friends to join us, or to join you next week's for Social Flight Live.
That's very kind of you. Yeah, it's funny when I talk to people around, I find two types of people when it comes to social flight experience. I find ones that come up that just have so much fun with it, makes them fly more. Many of them win things. I love to give away stuff. And then I find people have just never heard of it. And so if we could just challenge everybody to get the word out, just tell someone it exists, it's all free, I think we all win. So thank you for saying that. Very, very kind. And now, please, let's get
One more thing. You and I have a passion for P-51s. I've been fortunate to fly a couple of times in those airplanes. I don't know if you can see this, but this is one of my prized possessions. Thank you for making this available to your viewers. It sits on my desk every day.
That's our little T-51 commemorative thing. Absolutely. All right, Mark. Now I'm not going to let you get out of this. I know you're trying to delay. Tell us your story. How did you found PS engineering and have such an impact on all our lives in the GA cockpit?
Well, I'm not sure about that much impact on the GA cockpit. However, the story dates back when I was 9 years old, and I was in my grandpa's basement, and my second cousin, Kirk, he showed me what happened when you wrapped a wire around a nail and applied a battery. He picked up a piece of metal, and it just blew my mind as a 9-year-old. And that's when I just got hooked, so to speak, on electronics. So the next natural thing for me to do was to find a hobby, and that was ham radio. And in 1972, I became WN9JMQ, and it was only through the support of the other ham radio operators. They really helped me to build, like I built a 10-watt single tube transmitter. I wouldn't have been able to do that all on my own at 11 or 12 years old. And of course, that led to other projects and more electronics. And so electronics was the beginning of all of the experimentation. And then I just went off the deep end. And instead of doing my homework in high school, I did get pretty involved in designing electronics. Not very complicated, but the piece of electronics that I'm most proud of was a biofeedback amplifier, which, with the help of a friend, I designed and hooked it up to a TV. And the more you got into alpha waves, the slower the TV picture became. And if you were in a total alpha state, it would stop. Well, I was never able to get into a total alpha state. So I guess the problem there was I wasn't getting straight A's or B's or even C's in high school. I was so distracted by electronics. I came to realize if I wanted to go on to college, I'd have to buckle down. So I put electronics aside a little bit my senior year, studied, went on the swim team, lettered, got A's. And to make a long story short, I always wanted to work for a company called Hewlett Packard. And I thought getting a BSEE would be, I mean, that was a total requirement. So I went to the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and once again, another waypoint. I was able to get a graduate design engineering position as an undergraduate. In fact, I was a freshman. And for 4.5 years, I worked at Space Science and Engineering Center, working on TIROS-N. It's a polar orbiting satellite. What a great opportunity for me to work with engineers that really knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
So I did graduate, and for 2 summers prior to my graduation, I had summer internships at Hewlett Packard. And when I graduated, of course, I interviewed with other companies, and I had several offers. And of course, HP was the lowest offer by far. And I grabbed it. And there's so much I learned in the 12 years I was working at HP that I contribute the success of PS Engineering to Bill and Dave.
Wow. That's very cool. What made you decide to go and then start your branch off and start your own company, or did you do that concurrently?
Okay, so I'll go back. So in college, I didn't have any money. I actually put myself through college, through working at Space Science and Engineering. But I had a really good friend in engineering, and he happened to be a CFI. And I made an arrangement with him. I would take him out to dinner and maybe a beer or two on Saturday nights. And Sunday mornings, he would teach me how to fly for free. And we did that during my junior and my freshman year or my first semester in senior. And I would not have been able to get my pilot's license at the age I did if it wasn't for my dear friend, Joe.
Isn't that great? Like that seems to be a common story in general aviation, that I didn't come from an aviation background. So many of us are able to do it because other pilots take an interest in us, become mentors or enablers in a good way. And so many of us are here just because of that. Isn't that wonderful?
It is. It's the best community. And one more thing, I've got to give my Uncle Bill the credit for the spark for aviation. So when I was, I think, 14 years old, he invited my dad and my mom and myself to fly in his Bonanza. So I'm from Manitowoc, Wisconsin. My wife is from Oshkosh. Uncle Bill's from Two Rivers. So we all met him at the Manitowoc County Airport, and we went flying. And Uncle Bill, he gave me the co-pilot seat. And Uncle Bill says, "I wonder what this does." He pointed to this round knob, and he pulled it out, and all of a sudden the engine became quieter and quieter until it was just, and I thought that was the coolest thing. In the back, my mom's going, "What's going on? What's going on?" That was the waypoint for my passion for aviation. I thought that was just the coolest thing, that he could put the power back on and we were flying. So thank you to Uncle Bill.
All right, so tell me about the spark that started PS Engineering.
Okay, so after my first year at Hewlett Packard, I saved $5,000. And I bought an airplane over the phone, sight unseen, no pre-buy, nothing.
Exactly how we tell everybody to do it, right?
Right. I took a one-way flight on Northwest Airlines to Memphis. And I was in Minneapolis at the time. And the gentleman was he's in the service, and he was being stationed offshore. So we just did, it was the same airplane I learned in, a Grumman AA-1A. And we did once around the patch, I gave him $5,000 and I flew it home. And that's what you do when you were young and foolish. But I had that airplane for 18 years, and because of its design, thanks to Jim Beatty, it was glued, so it was fast. There weren't any rivets. It was all torsion bars. There weren't cables. So there was very little to go wrong. And that airplane for 18 years was flawless.
Wow.
So I got a hangar at Lake Elmo Airport in near St. Paul. And I would hang out and I'd watch all these airplanes taking off. And none of the pilots were wearing headsets. And I'm going, well, that's pretty loud in those things. Because my airplane, it's really deafening. And when I would take my wife, Joni, who, by the way, is our voice for all of our audio enunciations, we'd have to yell at each other more than we did at home. So that's what made me think, hey, we need to have a really good intercom for my airplane. So being a sales rep for test and measurement with HP, I knew all the engineers in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. And Eric Curson was the engineer I asked to help design our first intercom. And thus PS Engineering, P for person, S for Scheuer. And we wanted to keep it generic because we weren't sure if we were going to be successful in the aviation business. But we knew we wanted to design and manufacture electronics. So that's what sparked it, was wanting an intercom so I could protect my hearing. And fortunately, over the years, it's worked because my hearing is really, really good.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine. There's so many things that are different these days than back then, right? I mean, a lot of people, as you mentioned, I remember the first, well, I'm a huge Grumman fan. I remember when I got my Grumman, of course, there's this big microphone. I'm like, the heck's this thing for? Like, when's the last time someone used one of these? And people, a lot of people didn't wear headsets. I mean, there's ashtrays. I mean, it's just a different world when you look back on when these planes were made. So you decided that you were going to start doing something about audio, and you founded PS Engineering. Were you going to venture portable first, or did you go straight into the idea of a certified intercom?
No, we started with the Aerocom, which is still a registered trademark, Aerocom. And it was an industry first because this portable intercom had all the controls in the front and all the plugs and jacks in the back. So we were rated golden in the spaghetti factory in Aviation Consumer's article in 1986. I was so proud. Golden in the spaghetti factory. And in fact, the person who wrote it is Gary Pacou, who's our VP of Technical Services, and he's with us. I think he's celebrating 25 years with us. So that was our first product, and it was really successful. I was in the basement, and all the while, I was working full-time for Hewlett-Packard. So I had 8 hours or so at HP, and then 5-6 hours for PS Engineering every single day. And during my lunch hour, I'd load the trunk of the boxes to be brought to UPS. So it was just like multitasking to the nth degree. But I made it. And so the portable was the very first. And then do know this, a company called Sigtronics, they were the father. Frank Sagona started his business in 1975. But his intercom wasn't certified. It did not have TSO C50C. So PS Engineering in 1990 was, to the best of my knowledge, was the first company to certify an intercom.
Wow.
And that really changed things. That required us to have a quality manual, processes and procedures. So it really forced us to be much more organized on how we manufactured things.
Did you have anyone that helped you with that process? And I mean, how did you experience it? Because I think, a lot of people wonder why aviation, especially general aviation products, are so expensive, the certified ones. And the answer that they usually get is A, the certification process, and B, volumes, that we just don't have the volumes that a commercial market has. And I think a lot of people don't necessarily understand how much work is involved, not just in certifying, but then that just gives you a design. you then need the whole side of parts manufacturing approval and having a factory. That's something that I think keeps it's a huge burden. How did you cope with that?
Well, actually, I had enough energy that the very first TSOA on the PM1000, I did. And then Randy Beavers, he actually is a longer full-time employee than me. He's been with us now for 30, I think 35 years. And so with his help, I just went through all the steps, wrote up a QA manual, submitted the test data, and I was very lucky because there was a company called Phillips Consumer Electronics in Knoxville, and they had a complete testing facility, everything that you need to do the DO-160 tests.
Yeah,
So
which is like, you mean like HERF and lightning and all these different things they make you test.
yes, so that was also very, very helpful. But as the products became more complicated, I did need help, and that's where Gary came on board. And I still say to this day, he made our intercom company, our intercom maker, to an avionics manufacturer. He has been and will hopefully continue to be key to future certification of new products that we'll be introducing.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Do you find, I mean, it's rare that I have the opportunity to speak to someone who has such a breadth of knowledge of that certification and manufacturing, and especially over such a wide period. How do you think things have changed during that time? Have they become harder to go through the FAA and to deal with, you know, both the manufacturing and the certification, the ACO and the MIDO, or easier? I mean, how do you view it?
Okay. So just like aviation, we have relationships with fellow pilots. When you create a quality manual, you're working with your inspector at the ACO, and if you give them a really good product, a quality manual that they can approve, it's easier. We are in business because the FAA says we can be, and we know that every single day. We do everything we said we would do, and all the procedures and processes that we've implemented, we make sure that we stick with them, because I never want to stumble and have an FAA inspection or an audit, and they go, well, hey, you guys, you have not been doing this. And that's never happened, and I don't intend it to ever happen again. Has it been more difficult over the years? Absolutely. For example, we are writing software to level C. The requirements are so deep that we had to invest many, many thousands and thousands of dollars on a piece of software to help our engineers make certain that the software that they write is following the life cycle that the FAA wants us to follow. So we made, I mean, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars in investment just to make sure that the software that we write is following the life cycle.
Right. And when you think about it, right, that's software inside of an audio panel. And so people don't even think probably of your products when they pick one up or they use one in an airplane in terms of software. And yet that's the case. Yeah, there's a remarkable amount to staying with that process.
Just think about the Autopilot folks. They're writing level A. Unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because, I mean, of course, we've heard lots of people hold up a consumer product and say, this costs this, and why can't we do this in an airplane? And the FAA's recently made a lot of strides in starting to allow things to come in under different categories and in a different way. But that's only recent, and the companies that have made it, like yours, through the years to get to where they are now, didn't have the benefit of people relaxing standards or being able to view things in a different way. So my hat's off to you with that.
Well, thanks. So yeah, there's a lot of advantages of being first, and that's one of the things that I take great pride of our company. And by the way, I kind of wish we were doing this during the day. so that you could see all the folks that are in our machine room and our manufacturing floor, because I've been so blessed to have created an amazing team. So what I was getting at is we are making sure, where was I going with this? I forgot. We were talking about
Don't worry about that.
team. Yeah.
I mean, you know, the bottom line is when I look back, when I think about your company, when I think about PS Engineering and audio panels, I think back about when I first was learning to fly, and then also the first plane I got, which was a Grumman Traveler. And we're talking early 90s to mid 90s. And at that point in time, the enormous distinction was getting into an airplane that just had a series of switches that you would kind of set at different positions for what you were doing, and maybe an intercom in there, versus this amazing device that I had in my Grumman, which was a PS Engineering 6000M, which all of a sudden had all of this in one place, and instead of moving levers and little switches up and down, you could just select it. So it just made sense. It was just logical. Tell me how you got to this new generation, at least the way I think about it when I'm thinking new generation.
I know where I was going. One of the benefits is that we always strive to introduce something to be first. And the vast majority of the inventions in audio controllers, like I'm very proud to say, has come from PS Engineering. And the 6000 that you purchased, that was designed and manufactured in 1995, and to the best of my knowledge, was the first audio panel, intercom, and marker all in one box. And the biggest challenge we had with that was not the audio, not the speaker amp, but the marker beacon receiver. The marker beacon receiver has requirements that are almost impossible to meet, but we did. It took us a year and a half, and we didn't have it right or perfect the first time. And we were standard in almost every airframe, Cicada, Piper, Cessna, you name it. We were standard equipment before another company came on board. We had a problem with a marker at Piper Aircraft. We got a call Friday afternoon, and they were going to be shipping this to Germany, and they needed a fix. We worked that whole weekend, figured out what the problem, and they received their unit on Tuesday. And they said, thank you very much, and that was it. About 6 months later, the manager of the avionics group called me up out of the blue, and he goes, Mark, you really don't know how good a company is until there's a problem. And you guys really hit the ball out of the park. So yeah, the 6000 was definitely what I call our first revolution. The second revolution was this knob for, like you spoke about at the beginning of the show, the Vox control. So we invented the first automatic Vox circuit that didn't have any knobs or buttons or anything. It just worked. And Charles Johnson was the design engineer. And he used a vacuum cleaner for the background noise. And you know what, Jeff? Since 1997, when we patented that, we have not changed one resistor, not one line of code. It is exactly like it was in 1997. So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Explain to people, because it's really easy, especially with the amount of knowledge that you have, to just throw out terms like Vox. But I mean, I remember, of course, when you were just turning squelch knobs. I mean, tell people what this is.
Well, Vox is a very antiquated acronym, Voice Operated Relay. I think it came from the military days. And so basically you want to take advantage of the noise canceling of the headset, and you don't want the microphone picking up background noise when you're not speaking. So there's a trip level, and the microphone audio has to be greater than the background noise for it to open. And with manual Vox circuits, when you're taking off, you got to crank that baby tight so it doesn't open up. And when you're cruise, you got to adjust it. And like yours and my Grumman, if we opened up the sliding canopy, you'd have to tighten the Vox. With IntelliVox, it's completely automatic. and it works flawlessly. So that was the second one of our revolutions that we had.
Wow. Now I mentioned another thing early in my kind of my list, and I remember as soon as I had that 6000 from PS Engineering before I ever knew you, it wasn't long before all of a sudden it was the 6000 MS,
Right.
and I was like, stereo? Wait a minute, hold on. Um, it's funny because we don't think in the regular world like stereo should be something that's like revolutionary, but it most aircraft, probably even today, a lot of aircraft are still not wired for stereo, and yet it's a big difference.
Jeff, back at Oshkosh, 1992, we had our PM1000 mono intercom, and a couple of pilots came up. Why don't you have stereo? And my totally incorrect answer was, you don't need stereo, for gosh sakes, you're flying in an airplane. Well, in 1993, we introduced the PM2000, and stereo was extremely well received. So I learned a valuable lesson: listen to the customers. And if they say they want this, even though you may not think it's necessary, you try to implement what the pilots want. And that's something else that we're pretty famous for. We get so much positive feedback back on user forums, owner group forums, that a lot of these ideas aren't always original.
Yeah,
We get them from pilots.
that makes sense. Now, was it audio back then? Was it music? Was that the main driver from the very beginning? So even back then, when people were bringing in their, like, little Sony Walkman or something like that in there, and they wanted, because I remember that was always another PS Engineering thing. There's a jack to put in your audio.
That's it. They were cassette players, yeah, I think Walkmans, cassette players. And we took it to many levels. We worked with Delco Electronics and got the chipset for Sirius satellite radio. So our 8000 SR literally had a satellite receiver in it, and we had certified a satellite antenna to be mounted on an aircraft, and we had a remote control, and you could listen to any Sirius satellite channel. We were in-flight entertainment for a while, where we had a DVD, CD, Sirius satellite radio, all in one little box.
I think I remember the CD player,
Yeah. But Bluetooth blew all that out of the water. So in 2006, we were the first to bring Bluetooth to the marketplace, and that really killed in-flight entertainment, because now you could have. They didn't have iPhones in 2006, but they had iPods, I think they called them, those things. And then, of course, in 2010, the iPhone hit the streets. I think that's right. And it's amazing to have your phone connected to your audio panel and having the phone number for the air traffic control for the uncontrolled airfield you're departing. I've several times I've used it as my third radio, and they ask you, is there anybody in front of you? Nope, you're clear for takeoff. They don't give you a hold time, or
right.
Yeah, they release you because you say, yeah, there's nobody in front of me. So it's a huge tool to have your phone integrated in your audio panel. And then,
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
It's so cool. One of the other things that I've always loved about that and using your panels is that there's a lot of flexibility that you build in terms of, like, well, I want to be isolated. The pilot wants to, like, listen to music. The people want to listen to different music in the back than in the front. It can be kind of mind-boggling how many different, like, setups and orientations there are. How have you approached kind of the human factors side of this? Engineers, I will say, engineers in general are notoriously poor at this, and they build products where they just put tons and tons of stuff in, and then you need the same degree as the guy who designed it to figure it out. How do you make it easy?
Well, that is an amazingly great question. In fact, there was a thread on a particular forum group that we had removed capability from our audio panel because I thought it was just too complicated, and we were getting customers calling, how does this work? So we removed it, and I just got a call a couple of weeks ago saying, well, why did you remove it? And I explained to them that it was just too complicated. So we first started to use audio enunciations to get to the secondary functions. So for example, we had a ICS button, intercom system, ICS button, and it would have several different types of intercom modes. So if you would press and hold the ICS button, you could choose either standard intercom, Joni would say standard intercom, or you press and hold it, and then she would say alternate intercom function, and it would work differently. And we had different types of music distribution. Below the push button, it would say DIST for distribution. You press and hold it,
Yep.
and it gives you music distribution.
I still have that. I talk to her all the time. Your wife and I speak more than you do because she's always like, music one, all headsets.
She's got the greatest voice, absolutely. So that was the only way we knew how to get secondary functions and not make it overly complicated. But then, all right, in 2012, I was at one of the last AOPA summits, and a gentleman in a suit coat came to my booth and handed me his card, and he said, how would you like to license some technology from the Air Force? I'm going, yeah, sure, of course. I put it in my pocket. I really didn't think twice about it. And when I came back to the office, I pulled out the card, I went to his website, and he was a patent attorney, and he was under contract with the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and he indeed had patents that he was trying to locate small businesses to take advantage of, all the government spent dollars. So we reached a CRADA agreement with the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. That's a cooperative research agreement where their brains came and met with our brains, including Peter Campbell, our VP of engineering, and spent a couple of days. And of course, there were emails back and forth. And we used, for the first time, a digital signal processor, a computer on a chip. So it would calculate phasing so that you could distribute comm radios in unique positions in a stereo headset. And that was kind of foreign to me in 2012. But in 2014, when we introduced the PMA 450, the original, pilots really got it. And if you don't mind, I'd just like to explain what it does.
Yeah, please, especially in layman's terms for me.
We'll do it. So you can place COM1, for example, in the 10 o'clock position, and COM2, let's say, at the 2 o'clock position. And if you're going into an uncontrolled airfield, you need to have the weather, because when you do talk to air traffic control, you've got to tell them what approach you're going to be using. But air traffic control is talking to all sorts of other airplanes, which makes it virtually impossible to hear a complete weather cast on COM2. So with Intello audio, which is true dimensional sound, you can pay attention to the weather and ignore air traffic control. But the moment you hear your tail number, I promise you, you will drop the weather and you're going to pay attention to air traffic control because he just called your call sign. And your brain is very powerful, and I don't think pilots should not use it. So it's a terrible thing to waste. So multi-talker or Intello audio, they're very similar, gives that pilot the ability not to miss any air traffic control calls while still be able to hear weather so that they're more efficient with their radio communications.
So that's really fascinating. And I know we can think of it for general aviation. Usually we're thinking of it in terms of two radios, like we're listening to Unicom at the same time as air traffic control for an airport we're approaching, or we want to listen to the AWAS or something like that that's coming up. But you also do a whole lot of work where special missions where people are listening to a lot more than just two radios. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I wish Greg Ledbetter was here. He's been with the company since he was 20 years old, and he's our special mission specialist. And we developed in 2017 the PAC 45 series. And the PAC 45 can accept up to 8 radios so that you could place them into 9 unique positions. So each radio will have a position. And when I went to my first HAI in 2017, demonstrating the PAC 45, here comes a pilot in a flight suit, beard, handlebar mustache. I mean, he was very, very serious, and he was just going to walk right past me, but I wasn't going to have that because I could tell he was a special mission pilot. So I said, come on over, I want to show you something. And I asked him, do you hear multiple radios simultaneously? And he goes, yeah, I do it all the time. And I said, isn't that hard? He goes, no, it's what I do, it's easy. So I put a stereo headset on this pilot, and I played 6 radios simultaneously with multi-talker off. And I stopped and I said, could you understand all that? He goes, yeah, I could hear all that. Then I put the headset back on, I turned multi-talker on. And this really kind of tough and gruff pilot became just putty in my hands. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. And I'm positive he's flying behind a PAC 45 today somewhere in some helicopter or fixed wing. It's a major game changer for those guys.
Yeah, because they're listening to how many radios at the same time? Some maybe say a police helicopter, search and rescue, military, things like that.
Yeah, up to 8.
8, up to
Yes.
8 radios at one time that they've got. That would make my head explode.
And you have up to 4 control heads. So you might have a pilot, co-pilot, observer 1, observer 2. They all have access to any radios that they want, and there's just so much levels of hierarchy, who can do what. It all makes sense once it's installed, and we've gotten phenomenal PIREPs.
Wow. So well, first of all, I remember you came out with a radio for the experimental world with a radio / intercom.
Oh, what a memory. You're amazing.
Tell me about this, because I saw some integration between you and Apario also on this.
Mm-hmm. Well, so yeah, that's another first we did. That was called the PAR 100EX. EX was for experimental. And we took an audio panel and made it the control head for a micro air remote mounted transceiver. And it went over really, really well. But the quality of the radio and the quality of the PAR 100EX really wasn't to my liking. So then we developed the PAR 200, and we partnered with Trig. And let me tell you, Trig knows how to design radios. Being a ham operator since I was 13 years old, I know what a good radio sounds like, and I know what a good transmission sounds like. And the Trig TY91L that we use is a phenomenal radio. And the PAR 200 has gone through 3 revisions, and now it's the PAR 200B. And it also has Intella audio built in. It has some really easy functionality that you don't even have to think about, like easily recalling frequencies by just hitting recall and dialing the frequency you want to call up. So yeah, I think we're still the only ones that have an audio panel that controls the remote mounted transceiver. So it saves time for installation, it saves space in the panel, and it saves money.
Right. And it has explain that integration, because people, of course, think of Apario in terms of, of course, the core products that they do with Stratus and things like that. But they have an app also, and that integrates with your intercom / radio over Bluetooth.
Actually, it's not the PAR 200B. That's the 450B.
Okay.
And it does integrate with Apario's app. So we have 2 Bluetooth mechanisms in the 450B. The second, we call it BT2, can either be a normal streamer so that you can stream in music, or it can broadcast. And the person who sets up the 450B can decide if you want to just send out radio or everything the pilot hears. So they are using, Apario is using our 450B, and they're streaming just the radio to their app, and it decodes it on their iPad. So it's voice to text.
That's the thing that kind of I want to get to, yeah. Which is so wild the first time I saw this concept, I kept thinking, oh my God, this is what's coming next. The idea that you could see in text what has been said and to you, and only for your N number,
Right.
like directly for you, that is a game changer for me. I find it amazing.
They're
Uh,
amazing. We had nothing to do with the software at all. We had the very easy part, and that's the transmit to the iPad. That's all we did, but their software is amazing. So
I
like if, I'm sorry,
no, go ahead.
if the air traffic controller says 12000, it'll show on that iPad 12000.
It's amazing, you know, because it seems to me, especially having come up through the avionics manufacturers and in that whole world, that um, we focus so much in technology on navigation systems and primary flight displays and glass in the cockpit, but the system that we work on in general aviation that is analog radio, everyone talking on the same frequency, everyone trying to take turns, distortion, warbling when people talk at the same time, all these things, which there are advances for commercial, but it really seems like this whole world is very, very neglected and poised for change.
Well, I agree, and yeah. So I you're right on, and the commercial airlines have that, and I wouldn't be a bit surprised in the future that that kind of capability of having the text from a radio, air traffic control, being displayed in front of you. I wouldn't doubt that at all.
That's Mark code for let's not talk about future products.
Well, we are doing, I will say we are doing some really amazing stuff right now. Um, Unfortunately, it's been delayed a little bit because of all the disruption of parts. And again, I wish my team was here. When a part has been pushed out a year, we have no choice but to design that part out, spin the board, change the procedures, send the FAA data package. It has been such a distraction, but the good news is we still have products to ship, and we will have products this year pretty much off the shelf. So if
Wow.
anybody needs an audio panel, don't worry about it not being available. We have it available. But it's come at a price. We've not been able to take our brilliant engineers and let them loose on this new product we started over about a year and a half ago.
Right.
It's going to be our fifth revolution.
It's it's amazing to me. I mean, let's talk about that for a minute as an avionics manufacturer. This whole concept of what's happened with COVID and what's happened with supply chain is having such a major effect on the general aviation market, especially since it's smaller, more vulnerable to these types of changes. And I will say, when I was at Sun and Fun talking to a variety of manufacturers, the clearest message I got echoed what you just said, which was they all said the biggest impact they were having was with their engineering teams having to spend time re-engineering existing products to adapt to whatever supply chain issues there were, you know, respin an existing product to support a different chip because it was the only thing they could get, that they couldn't have them spending all their time on future products. And so it seems like we're all suffering, and it's going to be for a while because innovation's being stifled by having to focus so much on survival during supply chain. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, and keep in mind, we have to get the parts from approved suppliers. Just throw that in. No, that's exactly right. And I think that's affecting all industries, all avionics manufacturers, anybody who's designing electronics or manufacturing it. There's almost every day we get a notice, hey, this part's going to be delayed. Or the good news is we were very blessed to have received a contract with the United States Air Force. Our audio controller is part of the T1A upgrade program, So for those audio panels, we are DO1A rated, which absolutely helped us a lot. So the Air Force, they're getting their audio panels because of that rating, but we can't use that rating for our non-contract, government contract products. So yeah, it's been stressful, and
Wow.
but we're all pulling together. And that's, again, I wish my team was here so that you could see the folks that make it happen.
I'm gonna show a picture of those folks that make it happen right now, so people can see that. Here's your team.
That's it. That's on our website. Thank you very much.
That's everybody that makes things happen at PS Engineering. Do you, based on having kind of been in the trenches with all of this, are you seeing a light at the end of the tunnel yet? Do you have any insight as to a start crawling back to normalcy, or are we still at a point that you just never know what's going to happen the next day?
We are still at the point we just don't know what's going to happen the next day. We are banking on most of our approved suppliers are the manufacturers like TI and so forth, and they pushed out dates. We're just counting on the manufacturers to keep the dates. We have no control over it. So, and I don't think it's going to get any better. It could get worse, to be quite frank.
Really?
Yeah, we'll know more at the beginning of 2023. That'll be a key first quarter.
Wow. It's amazing that we are sitting here only in the second quarter of 2022, and to hear you say that we won't really even know if we're turning a corner until the first quarter of 23.
Now that's our viewpoint right now. We're good for 2022. So order your audio panels now. And I'm pretty sure we'll be able to continue shipping in 2023.
Isn't that true? It's a good time to be a kind of a hoarder or proactive when it comes to your avionics or pretty much anything you need for your aircraft. I can tell you from the mechanical side and you know every other product from airframe and to engine, et cetera. It's certainly challenging. And so the message I think to everyone out there is to, as a consumer and as a pilot, to protect yourself by looking ahead as much as you can to what you're going to need or what is likely to possibly have to happen, and get it in the pipeline.
Yeah, that's right. So the only thing I think I want to say in closing, because I think we're getting close to the top of the hour, is not only our team here at PS Engineering I'm so grateful for, but our dealers. So when customers go to an avionics shop, they may or may not have any idea what they want. Our dealers will always make sure that they know that there's an alternative, and I give them so much credit for them representing and selling our products. We don't have any big marketing. We don't have any marketing. Basically, we go to trade shows and we have one ad in AOPA. Now that's it. That's our whole marketing. We don't have spiffs or kickbacks or whatever. So everyone gets the same price. Every dealer gets the same price, no matter if you buy 1 or 100. It doesn't matter. And our dealers really appreciate that. So when a pilot goes to his avionics shop, unless they know exactly what they want, and then they shouldn't try. I don't want our dealers ever to change someone's mind, but I'm always grateful that a dealer tells them, hey, had you thought about a PS Engineering audio panel? And our shops are very knowledgeable about our product line. So I want to give a shout out to all of our
Absolutely. Now, I do want to bring up one other thing, of course, before we hit the top of the hour. You know, I'm a huge fan of the federated panel concept. I'm a huge fan of like individual products where you can choose the best of breed. And most of our partners, most of the folks that help keep the lights on here at SocialFlight are all companies that make individual products so you can pick the best thing for the best function. One of the things I like is that I have always thought of a lot of your auto panels as slide-in replacements for upgrades. That's always been a big boom. I know Avidyne, a huge partner of SocialFlight, they have that option of being able to slide in because avionics shops are very backed up right now on their work. And it's a big deal if you can upgrade your panel without having to break into all the wiring in the back. Is that still the case with a lot of your products?
Yeah, virtually all of our products are slide-ins. So our 7000 BT is a slide-in for the old 7000. Our 8000 and 450 are the slide-in for Garmin's GMA 340, and surprisingly enough, we've been selling quite a few of our audio panels to the Garmin GMA 345 owner.
Absolutely. Well, that's great. And so let people know where to go for your website, of course, and to find the latest product information.
Yeah, just PS Engineering, PS-Engineering, but call us because I love talking to you. Wouldn't believe how many people I've been able to speak to that have amazing stories. Just yesterday, a customer called. He has a Shrike Commander. He was telling me about all of his conversations and meetings with Bob Hoover and Chuck Yeager. It's just, that's why I love my job so much, is the pilots and talking about their airplanes and their avionics, of course.
Isn't that wonderful? I mean, I absolutely love that about our world. Anytime that you're talking to someone, whether it's filling them in with information or even if you're in the business of sales, it's wonderful. You just get to hear about people's planes and their stories and their needs. It doesn't make for short conversations.
No, I got plenty of time. I enjoy it very, very much.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us this evening on Social Flight Live, Mark. It's wonderful. I appreciate everything that you have done to support General Aviation, and it really has made a big difference to what we all experience every time we go to choose what radio we're going to talk on or what our flight experience is like when it comes to audio.
Wow, thank you. And thank you for what you do. Go Social Flight.
Thank you very, very much. I appreciate it. Good night, Mark. And so to all of you, thank you for taking time out of your evening to join us here for another episode of Social Flight Live. It really is very, very special to me, and I appreciate it that you're all joining us here on this journey and helping us support General Aviation all the way around. And as Mark said in the beginning, it would be wonderful if you help spread the word. Make sure that you tell pilots that socialflight.com exists, and of course, that we could find that next winner for our Aspen E5 electronic flight instrument for the Fly to Win Challenge. With that, we will be back next Tuesday, May 17th, with a really, it's going to be a fun show. On Tuesday, May 24th, we're back, and in this case, it's going to be with artist David Ewell. If you have not seen David Ewell's paintings, they are absolutely breathtaking. They combine motorcycles and aircraft, and it is a sight to behold, and his process is really something wonderful. So that is a show I am personally really looking forward to. And then after that, Tuesday, May 31st, we are here with NASA astronaut and award-winning photographer, Jay Apt. Until next time, I wish you all blue skies.